Hello, hello. Tonight we are going to be talking about a pretty important topic that has come up recently and talking about so you don't want to always be the default parent. And hello, those of you who are joining us live. Hello to those of you who are going to be watching this as a replay. It's Chelsea here. I am the founder and face behind Postpartum Together. And earlier this weekend, it was a long weekend over this weekend, and I asked a question and got some information back in stories that I want to use to form our conversation and this chat this evening. And so this was really about being the default parent. And I put out a poll over the long weekend about how many times mama feels like she falls into that default parent role, specifically talking about falling into that default parent role when both parents are home, are present, are off work. So we're really looking at this time where we have this overlap, this time where it's not just one parent home with a baby, but again, there's this overlap. There's both partners are home, are present, are available to help, and yet an overwhelming majority of you shared that when this is the case, you feel like the default parent. And I have been here. I hear this frequently. This is something that I had to really work hard through in my own story, in my own journey, in my relationship, and something that I talk with clients about all the time. And so I really wanted to bring this to this space today to make room for this conversation and to share. So here's how this is kind of going to go. I have some of the feedback from this weekend, some of the things that people brought up, and we're going to look at these and talk about how they resonate and how they happen and how they come to be the reality we're experiencing, even if it's not really the way we want to operate or we want to see and experience things in our homes. And then I have 3 tips for you guys. As always, I always want to leave you with tips and tangible action items that you can take and move forward with in order to improve your relationship and that connection with your partner and your understanding of yourself and your family unit and how this all pieces together. So, this is a great space. This is a great conversation that we are having, and I want to really kick this off. So we're talking about how many women, specifically mothers, specifically feel like they are the default parent in situations where there are other people, usually the partner, who is present and ready and able to help. So here are some of the things that I heard from you guys this weekend. And if this resonates with you as you're listening or if you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments with a raised hand or a heart or something to let me know that these resonate. So this is what this community here shared about being the default parent, specifically in on the weekends or in a time where there's overlap. I end up telling my husband off for really small things. Hello, I've been there. This was the story of my first year of motherhood for a lot of reasons that I can now, in retrospect, identify, but it felt so big and so frustrating and so overwhelming. So the first person shared, I find myself telling my husband off for small things. The second thing that was shared is that I am the one who gets everyone and everything ready. This is meals, clothes, all the behind the scene things. I've also been there. That's not really the case in our situation anymore, but that took a lot of work and intention, and we're going to talk about that. Number 3, it's lonely. I have changed and my partner seems to have life unchanged, and that becomes even more noticeable when we're both present and I feel like the default parent. Number 4, my partner doesn't need permission for things that I do. This could be going to the bathroom or asking to run an errand or do something with friends. So a lot of you are feeling like your partner can make these plans and do these things, and it just need permission in order to make that happen. The next is that I hold all the home and the kid mental load. Next thing that was shared is that I make the decisions and my partner usually just says, oh, do whatever you think is best. And the last thing that was shared this weekend is that My partner gets to be the fun parent who does less and gets more of the love. And so these are the things that were shared inside our Postpartum Together community this weekend about how we can be the default parent and what this looks and feels like, and some of those underlying tensions and experiences there. So I want to just validate that. And I want to say that a lot of people feel these things. These are not things that are new to me. These are things that I experience. These are things that I hear and see with clients often. Some of those big things that I want to reiterate is that it can feel like your life has changed in so many ways. You need permission. It's hard to plan things. Your life, your schedule is kind of dictated for you. And it can feel like your partner's life has gone a little unchanged. Like they don't need these same permissions. They don't have these same changes. They don't need these same kind of plans in place like mom does. The second thing that I want to really hone in on is that mental load, the mental and even physical and emotional load that a lot of moms are carrying, that they feel, they are the default in carrying this load. And this can be anything from planning out the meals to having, clothes prepared for the next outing to making the decisions. These are things that a lot of people are getting this tension around. So again, those are the things that were shared inside our community this week around the default parent situation. And I want to give you guys 3 tips, 3 things that you can tangibly evaluate in your life, that you can work through and that you can put into place so that you feel like you have, and that you actually do have, better partnership and collaboration between you and your partner. So the first thing that I encourage you to do, if you're feeling any of these things that were mentioned, is to set your expectations frequently and clearly. Sometimes this means over communicating. Don't do this thing in your head where you're like, well, I just assume they're going to know X, Y, and Z. That's not going to get you to the place you want to be. We need to be communicating, and we need to be communicating these expectations frequently and clearly. So I don't encourage you on Monday to say, hey, on Saturday, can we do, or I'm da-da-da-da-da. We've got to put this on the calendar. We've got to communicate it. We've got to make things clear both ways. Maybe you want to also share with your partner that you would like them to put some of their expectations or their desires and bring them to the table so that they can be discussed and communicated about, and you don't feel blindsided like you're left as the default parent because your partner has made a plan or put something in place. Okay, so we mutually want to work on communicating and setting these expectations frequently and clearly, okay? No assumptions need to be made here, and we want to frequently enter into that space. The second thing that I have for you, if you have felt or you are feeling any of the things that we mentioned earlier, is to empower your partner to lead and let the small shit go. Okay, mama? So this means that you can't expect things to be done your way and done the way that you would and you want to do them, and also have the help and the leadership and the camaraderie of your partner. Okay, your job is not to tell your partner how to do everything. Your partner is your partner. They're also the parent. They're also able to enter this space and get messy and make mistakes and learn how to do things their way, which is good for your baby to see these different ways and different approaches. It's good for you to learn that there are a lot of small things that you might be trying to control that is okay to let go. And this is good for your partner because your partner wants to, whether or not they've expressed this to you, your partner wants to be empowered to make his or her own decisions and to really enter into this space of owning their own parenthood. I remember saying to my partner that I didn't want a second child. When I had a child, I didn't want to also see him as a child. I didn't want to also be telling him how to do things and what to do. But the problem was I was doing that because I wanted him to do it the way that I did it, the way that I wanted it done, in the time that I did it. And what I was not doing in that time was I was not empowering him to really enter into his parenthood journey and to discover and to try and to explore and to make mistakes and to learn and to master these different areas. And so it's really important that you look at What are the small things that you can let go, and how can you empower your partner? Ashley, I think that so many people can resonate with that we assume so much, and that we, can struggle to really clearly and frequently communicate some of these things that are our desires, our needs, and the ways that we can enter into more partnership, so that we don't just say, you know what, forget it, I'm going to do it myself, or yeah, sure, you go out, I'm just going to stay here and do this. We get into this like kind of resentful default mode of parenting, and that's not where we want to stay. That's not where we want to live. That's not where we thrive as individuals and as moms, and it's not where our relationship thrives. And so it is an easy habit to get into, and it is a place where we can really stop and we can interrupt these patterns, and we can take a step back and reevaluate, what is this looking like, sounding like, feeling like for each person in the relationship. And then the third thing is that I'm encouraging you to not take the default if you don't want to always be the default. And so if you're finding yourselves in these habits of, asking permission to go to the bathroom, or staying behind every weekend while your partner goes to do something, then you really need to ask yourself, am I making myself the default parent? Is there something that I could be doing to speak up for my needs, or to step away, or to even just communicate? Sometimes me and my husband, we just say, okay, hey, you're your primary parent, or your default parent right now. That means that you're kind of the one with the eyes on the kids. We're all hanging out together, but you're the one maybe making decisions, or the one they're going to come to. You're the primary, your default parent right now. And we switch those roles. But if you're always stepping into that, if you're always taking over, if you're always putting yourself in the place of being the default parent, then that's where it's going to stay. And so you have to push yourself outside of some of those comfort zones, and you have to welcome your partner into that. And in many cases, it's welcoming your partner in. In some cases, it's having a hard conversation and saying, listen, I need you to step into this place, because I can't do this all the time. I can't do this on my own. I can't be the default, the primary parent all the time. So I hope that for you, this is an invitation to your partner. I also want to recognize that for some of you, this could be a hard conversation with your partner. So I am wrapping this up, where tonight we've been talking about, so you don't want to be the default parent. And there are a lot of ways where we fall into assuming the role, continuing the role, playing the role of the default parent, and kind of entering into this resentment and not having great communication, and having these assumptions and having these negative experiences with ourselves. And so we have permission, you have permission to interrupt any pattern that's happening in your home and in your relationship. So if you're feeling some of these things, and I see some new faces, so I'm going to repeat them really quick. If you're feeling some of these things that our community expressed over the weekend, over the long weekend, then I want you to revisit these 3 things that I brought up. So if you're feeling like maybe you're getting upset with your partner for small things because all these little things are building up and it's resentment, and you hit this explosion mode, all right, we need to interrupt this pattern. If you're, getting everything ready, you're taking care of the meals, you're packing the diaper bag every time, you're setting, the arrangements with family, you feel like you're the one who's always taking this, all right, we need to interrupt this pattern. You're feeling like your partner's life is unchanged because they just go about it ho-hum, and they, maybe don't have some of these areas that you do where you feel like you have to make the plans, or you have to ask for permission, or you have to really lay out what needs to happen and when, then we need to enter that conversation with your partner and interrupt the pattern. Your partner doesn't need permission, but you do. Having all of the home and kid mental load, being the one who's making all the decisions, and maybe not getting to be the fun parent sometimes, but being the one who's always in charge and always keeping track of things. These are patterns that we can interrupt. And to reiterate, the 3 ways that I encourage you to interrupt this pattern: 1 is to set and communicate your expectations frequently and very clearly. Stop making assumptions. Revisit the conversation. Make it clear with a calendar or other ways that you and your partner keep track of what's happening. Empower your partner to lead and let the small shit go. And third is don't always just take on and assume that role if you don't want to always be in that role, okay? So this can be a little pushback or an invitation to your partner. So I am going to wrap this up. I love to hear from you, Amanda, that your husband is slowly getting better at this since you've talked about it. And yes, this can take a push. It can take these uncomfortable conversations. But you know what's more uncomfortable than an uncomfortable conversation with your partner? It's days and weeks and months and years of resentment because you're not being seen and heard and you're not having this partnership that you deserve and that you desired. And so we interrupt these patterns. If you're feeling these patterns, go back to the 3 tips I shared so that you can interrupt some of these patterns. And if there's one that you're feeling stuck on, or you want to practice the conversation, maybe you want a sentence starter idea, something like that, send me a DM. I love helping you come up with ways to approach these conversations with your partner so that you don't always have to feel exhausted and resentful by being the default parent, okay? Partnership is possible. Partnership is good, and it takes a hell of a lot of work, and that's what we're here to do. Okay, so yes, Amanda, resentment is way worse. The conversation is hard. I'd love to hear less resentment. So proud of you. This is going to go up on the grid as an IGTV. So if you're just hopping on or you're watching the replay, it will be there available for you. And I want to hear what of these shares from earlier that you resonate with most, and which of these 3 tips are you going to set forth this week so that you can interrupt those patterns in your partnership. Okay, come back soon, shoot me a message, let me know your feedback. Let's practice some of these conversations together because we want good partnerships.